I'm Bill Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor. It means so much to see so many of you here today as we observe this important holiday of Juneteenth. I would like to ask everyone who is able to please stand. As we are celebrating Juneteenth today, we are also, of course, celebrating Flag Day. And I would ask if you please join me in standing for a pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I also want to acknowledge that the land we are on here in Town Hall and throughout the town of Brighton is the ancestral land of the Haudenosaunee. The Haudenosaunee, the original inhabitants of the town of Brighton. We acknowledge their history, the culture. We respect the deep meaning that we have learned from the Haudenosaunee over the years, and we acknowledge that this land, this legacy is important, is worthy of our study and our understanding and our deepest respect. We have a number of elected officials with us today. I believe we have the entire town board with us. You'll hear more from Councilmember Wilt a little bit later. Councilmember Salzman, Nate Salzman is here. Councilmember Chris Werner is here. Councilmember Christine Corrado is also here. County Legislator Sue Hughes Smith is here. We have Courtney Renford here from Assemblymember Clark's office. Is Rose here? Did I see Rose? Not sure Rose Bonnick has been able to get here yet, but I know we're expecting Rose from Senator Cooney's office. Superintendent Kevin McGowan is here. Thank you, Kevin, for being with us. Judge Vic Vilku is here today. Judge, thank you for being here. And our great former judge, Judge Karen Morris, is with us. Thank you. Thank you, Judge. The legacy that all of you as officials who have served, that Judge Morris who has served the community, and our current elected officials is so important to the success, to the work that we do for the community as a whole. So I do want to thank you all. Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce a musician that I know many of you know. He's a good friend. He's jumping all around today. Jimmy will be going back to City Hall downtown when he finishes, but please let me introduce Jimmy Highsmith. I will ask you all again to rise. Jimmy will be playing the Black National Anthem with the voice. Jimmy.
Thank you. You know the words? If you sing along, all right?
Jimmy, thank you so much. Jimmy Highsmith, thank you so much. Wow, what a great rendition. So appreciative, thank you. I should also mention we do have several members from the Town of Brighton Idea Board here with us today. Our Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Advisory Board. Those members have been so important in bringing our intentional work in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion, not only internally within the organization, but externally to the community as a whole. They have been so powerfully engaged in the work that we have pursued in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now I want to bring up our Chief Diversity Officer, Miriam Moore. Miriam has led that idea board and has worked so hard to make sure that Brighton is leading the way in this community when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Miriam.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right. As I take my post for the Town of Brighton's commemoration of Juneteenth, I'd like to acknowledge Town Supervisor William Maley for his willingness to share and sustain the vision of equity, inclusion, and diversity within the town's government. There is much work to be done, but we are making great strides. Without you lending your ear and granting the autonomy to deliver on such a charge, our efforts would be stunted. Many thanks. Faye Calhoun, a senior at Brighton High School, Faye lends herself to the African American Student Club, among other things. A young partner in this work in the realm of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Faith, we are so proud to welcome you back to the Town of Brighton Juneteenth commemoration. Please help me welcome Faye Calhoun as she shares remarks.
Juneteenth. By definition, it is celebrated as the day slavery ended in the U.S. But for many, it was a beginning, a chance at life that former slaves couldn't afford under oppression. I would remember hearing about Juneteenth and celebrating it at home, but never hearing about it outside of that. With Juneteenth now recognized as a national holiday, we can now celebrate the unsung heroes who were never given space to be celebrated. The Black community has worked hard to get where we are, but still have farther to go to get true equality. And this is the first step. There are now kids who look forward to celebrating a holiday that brings joy and celebrates a group of people with rich history, and a kind of love that invokes all to join the celebrations. So, when you celebrate Juneteenth, think of all the lives it changed in 1865, and the lives the holiday continues to improve now.
Thank you, Faye. Faye, you are headed to Morgan State University.
Balmer, right? Ball.
Make us proud, Faye. We'll be looking for amazing things to continue to come from you. A scholar, a scientist, a contributor of many things. The greater Rochester area has benefited greatly from his very existence. He's a Jew, a revered elder. I'm going to welcome Supervisor Maley back to the lectern for a special presentation. to Dr. Walter Cooper.
Thank you so much, Miriam. It is indeed an honor to bring an icon of Rochester, truly an icon of Rochester, Dr. Walter Cooper, and invite you to join me here at the podium, if you would, please. We have a proclamation issued by the town recognizing Juneteenth, but also recognizing how important the leaders of our community and beyond are to bringing the vision, the dream of Juneteenth to reality. And I'd like to read this proclamation before I present it to you, Dr. Cooper. Whereas Juneteenth is sometimes referred to as the nation's second Independence Day, as it commemorates June 19th, 1865, when 2,000 Union troops entered Galveston, Texas, delivering President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, which went into effect 2.5 years earlier on January 1, 1863. Remember, that Emancipation Proclamation addressed the states that were in conflict with the Union. But who was going to enforce it until the Union Army advanced through the South? And that enforcement took the entire rest of the Civil War and even beyond the Civil War, June 19th, 1865 and beyond. Whereas Juneteenth is a time for rejoicing and reflection as we commemorate African American freedom and gather to truthfully acknowledge a terrible period in U.S. history that continues to negatively influence our society. And today, whereas, as we celebrate Juneteenth, we also celebrate one of Brighton's and Rochester's outstanding African American leaders, Dr. Walter Cooper, who was at the forefront of the civil rights movement in this community and dedicated his life and continues to dedicate his life to making the American promise of liberty and justice for all ring true. Whereas an academic, scientist, and athlete, Dr. Cooper graduated with a PhD in physical chemistry from the University of Rochester in 1957, received 3 patents for photographic film chemistry while being employed at the Eastman Kodak Company, and was a star athlete who graduated from Washington and Jefferson College in 1946 on a full academic and football scholarship, and served as president of the college's National Honor Society. Whereas Dr. Cooper founded Action for a Better Community in 1964, co-founded the Rochester chapter of the Urban League in 1965, served as president of the NAACP Rochester branch, was appointed to the Board of Regents of the New York State Education Department, and accepted honorary doctorates from Washington and Jefferson College and SUNY Geneseo. And that's just the abridged version. Whereas Dr. Cooper has been instrumental in pushing forward the meaning of Juneteenth by helping the ongoing struggle of African Americans to achieve equality in all facets of society, so they may live without fear and prosper in a country no longer divided along the ambiguous lines of race. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, William W. Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor, and on behalf of the members of the Brighton Town Council who are with us today, do hereby recognize June 19th, 2024 as Juneteenth, a federal holiday in the town of Brighton. And we thank Dr. Walter Cooper for his strength and determination in moving civil rights forward. This proclamation is signed today, the 14th day of June, 2024, and I am proud to present it to you, Dr. Cooper.
Thank you.
photo here. Let me open this here so everybody can see that. Dr. Cooper, I'm proud to deliver the podium to you, if you'd like to say a few words.
Okay. Generally, it's pretty hard for me to just say a few words.
You're the honoree. We're not going to put a stopwatch on you.
But good afternoon, and I feel proud and appreciative of the town of Brighton through its management honoring me on this day, which I consider very precious. It's very precious to me because within my own family, I have a great aunt who was born 1880, first generation of freed slaves. She became the first college graduate in the family, and she set the pattern because her attitude was the book and what it contains has the ability to set you free. My mother idolized this great aunt and carried that wisdom within her own family. I had 5 sisters, 1 brother. Out of the 7 children, 6 went to college, and we had exactly no money. My dad did not have a day of education, but he worked in the steel mills in the Pittsburgh area. My mother's motto was very simple: the book shall set you free. When you were 7 years old, you had to have a library card and you had to use it because she would test you and ask you what was important in that book. And the book has always been important because I firmly believe that a people without a historical memory are doomed. You have to have the historical memory of your family because that's very important to the decisions you make and what your future shall be. I'm honored by the town of Brighton. I've had many friends here during my career at Eastman Kodak, friends who were determined to see that equality would be the way of life in the community, not only Brighton, but the surroundings of Brighton. We have to acknowledge that there's a long road to be traveled. And I'm amazed at the decline in educational efforts within the city. Some of the students who come to Brighton are directly related to the urban-suburban program, which I was one of the founding members of. And I hope, and I have a grandson who's a graduate of Brighton High School. So I'm not far removed from Brighton and the best that it can give. We have a challenge ahead of us in this community. It's far greater than one could ever imagine. I've seen the decline in educational achievement in the city over the last years. Decline in the leadership from late 1950s until about 1970s. Distinguished figures came to Rochester to express civil rights, literature, and other facets of human existence. For example, Martin Luther King, Ralph Abernathy, Malcolm X, Thurgood Marshall, all came to Rochester in the late 50s and early 60s. Within the last 10 to 15 years, no one of national significance has been to Rochester. And I fault the leadership. We do not have the dynamic leadership that existed at that time. For example, if we had a functioning NAACP in 2019, it would have celebrated its 100th year in Rochester. It would have celebrated the Ralph Bunche Scholarship Committee, which was founded in 1949. So the emphasis on education and the scholarships that were given to promote that interest disappeared in the community. So whether the citizens recognize it or not, there's a tremendous challenge ahead of them. The settlement agencies that produce Main Street, for example, produce Trent Jackson, who was an Olympian, Constance Mitchell, who became the first representative in county government, and also just a large number of young people who went on to college. Effie Lancaster and another girl went to Nazareth, the first black graduates out of Nazareth College. We are not producing those kinds of individuals anymore because of a lack of leadership and a lack of organizations. And that has to be the focus of a new generation. This new generation has many more opportunities than my generation ever had. But you have to be educated and you have to be in a position to take advantage of those new opportunities. I grew up in a family where my mother had a fixation on this first generation of freed slave who became a college graduate in the family. So out of the 7 children, 6 of us went to college and we didn't have any money. I tell people claim, well, the youngster comes from a poor family. That's an illegitimate excuse. I said, for example, when I grew up, I was living on 3 square meals, oatmeal, cornmeal, and miso meal. But you went to school every day and you brought home books and you were tested in terms of whether you were reading books. My mother had a firm rule. When you were 7 years old, you had to have a library card, and she saw to it that you used it. Nowadays, Rochester, with a great library system, is underutilized. People do not use the library, the written word. But it's good to be here because I'll be 96 next month, and I just wonder, why am I still around? But I'll take it. The alternatives are devastating. Our children should have many more opportunities than my generation ever had. But I had one advantage. I grew up not in an all-black community. I grew up in a multiracial, multicultural community, fueled by the fact that after World War I, the large migration into the Pittsburgh area of immigrants from all over the world. So my classmates came from A to Z. And so we even had International Day at school where the students would dress in the national outfit of their parents. So there was no such thing as people feeling inferior because you were always elevated through the activities in the community. And no excuses were given for poor performance in schools. And we have to recognize that if we're going to come to grips with the educational problem, the families have to be involved. A 10-year study by Professor Coleman showed that the family is the primary entity in terms of education of children. And I know that to be the case because my mother, our family, with a father with no days of education and a mother with 9 years, that my mother had the fixation on, you're going to have a library card and I'm going to see that you use it. Rochester has an excellent library system. It's underutilized. And I don't know what the teachers do nowadays, but it would appear to me that teachers should instruct parents that the first day of school, during the first week, take your child to a library and may insist when that child is 7 years old that that child will have a library card and it's utilized. But it's great to be here, particularly at my age. And I really appreciate the town of Brighton honoring me and appreciating the work that I've tried to do in the community, at times with success and at other times with failure. So, but keep up the good work, Brighton, and I'm certain you will reap reward. So thank you again for the privilege.
If there were failures, Dr. Cooper, they only led to greater successes. Your work has been extraordinary, and we share your goal for a beautiful, multicultural, diverse community here in Brighton. We see it around us. We see it on our streets and our neighborhoods. You are a visionary. Thank you. I'll give the podium back to Miriam Moore.
Oh, please.
I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Frederick Jefferson. Mrs. Jefferson. Dr. Arlette Miller. Dr. Jefferson and Dr. Miller have both been promoters of excellence and have served as sources of inspiration in my life and in the life of countless others. I reverence you and I thank you for being here. Marta Ross. Our second guest from Brighton High School is joining us for the first time. And we couldn't be more delighted to have her. Help me welcome Marta as she renders a poem.
I Rise by Maya Angelou. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trump me through the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk as if I got oil wells spouting from my living room? Just like moons and like suns with the certainty of tides, just like high hope springing high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops weakened by my soulful cries? Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't take it awfully hard. 'Cause I laugh like I got oil mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your lies, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness offend you? Does it come as surprise that I dance like I got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from the past rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean, leaping, welling, and swelling, I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise.
Beautiful. Thank you, Marta. A town council member who is a visionary of a greater commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion. She is the board liaison to the town's idea board and a member of today's planning committee. The term freedom. Councilmember Robin Wilt takes the term by storm. Please help me welcome Councilmember Robin Wilt.
Marry me, honor me. Thank you. And what a tough act to follow, Maya Angelou. I want to thank everyone for being here today, and I want to offer comments from the entirety of the town board to recognize this occasion. Born in October 1926, Opal Lee, the so-called grandmother of Juneteenth, spent much of her life advocating for civil rights. When she was just 12, her family home was vandalized and set ablaze by white supremacists, none of whom were arrested. It led her down a lifetime path of trying to force the nation to pay respect to those impacted, oppressed, or killed by racism throughout U.S. history. Each year, on Juneteenth, she and her family in Texas go on a picnic and celebrate the day in 1865 when enslaved Black people in Galveston, Texas, learned that they had been freed over 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation took effect. Lee's struggle demonstrates how jubilation and celebration has been an effective tool that has allowed individuals and groups to shift the impact of negative narratives and events in their favor. It epitomizes joy as an act of resistance, resilience, and reclamation of Black humanity. In its simplest form, jubilant is an adjective that describes a feeling of great happiness or triumph. It is often used to express exuberance, elation, or a sense of victory. When someone is jubilant, they are filled with joy and excitement, radiating positivity and enthusiasm. In essence, the spirit of Jubilee encompasses a broader scope than jubilance, encapsulating not only personal joy, but also the commemoration of significant events, the pursuit of justice, the pursuit of renewal. Social activism can take many forms: protests, petitions, boycotts, art, running for office. But joy can also be a revolutionary tool against systems of oppression. Black joy, as an act of resistance against white supremacy, takes center stage on Juneteenth. Black joy affirms that I am not a victim. I am an agent of change. It rejects the idea that violence, injustice, discrimination, prejudice, and dominance over others are normal and accepted actions. It holds instead that development is a manifestation of one's ability to grow and succeed, to move beyond the here and now into a progressive future that includes the future of those who are yet to be born. Personal or collective development is the part of humankind that allows us to soar. Enslaved African Americans understood that they were not free, and yet they believed and they knew that there were generations coming after them that would be free. That kind of empowering Black joy gave them the will to hold on and press forward no matter what situations confronted them. Today, we are manifestations of our enslaved ancestors' wildest dreams. When Black communities and Black individuals decide to identify for ourselves and provide value in Blackness, while the culture we are immersed in tells us that we should not value Blackness, that's resistance and opposition to racism and inequality. Juneteenth, as well as June's Pride Month and other Heritage Month celebrations are great examples of celebrating as a form of protest. In celebration of Juneteenth, rather than more dominant notions of what our community is and how our community should be viewed, we instead witness our communities themselves intentionally drawing on self-validation, self-valuation, and self-definition. In celebrating the vibrancy and camaraderie of Juneteenth, Black communities refuse to accept suffering against oppression. We choose instead empowerment. But even more than that, it is a show of support that not just for the African American community, but the fact that Juneteenth represents freedom for all. Today and every day, we hope that you find joy in the act of resistance, resilience, reclamation, and renewal that is Juneteenth. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Robin. Powerful words. I do want to acknowledge Rose Bonnick is here from Senator Jeremy Cooney's office. Thank you so much, Rose. I also want to remind everybody that we will be celebrating Juneteenth as well at the Brighton Farmers Market this coming Sunday morning with a variety of cultural and community affairs. So I know I see a lot of regulars at the market here, but come out and join us and help continue the celebration of Juneteenth. Now, if you'd like to come up, join me around the flagpole. We have a flag to raise. Thank you, everybody. We welcome you and encourage you to continue the celebration of Juneteenth. You'll see this flag up, the wind will start blowing, the world will see that this is truly a holiday of jubilation in Brighton. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And I do want to thank as well our ASL interpreters. They are an important part of making sure that today is inclusive for all. Thank you. Well, we're proud to celebrate Juneteenth in Brighton. This is a holiday of joy, it's a holiday of jubilee, it's a federal holiday now, but it's also a local holiday, and it's important that we here in Brighton recognize the significance of Juneteenth. We value the diversity of our community, and this is the kind of celebration that brings that message home, that Brighton is a community that celebrates the joys of all of our people. Specifically, we had the opportunity to celebrate the life and the ongoing life of Dr. Walter Cooper. He has done so much in his life, the organizations he has founded here in Rochester, the people that he has mentored, the opportunity for us today to present him with our Juneteenth proclamation and recognize, he talks about education. He has a school named after him. He talks about uplifting people. He talks about multicultural society, and he has walked that talk through his whole life. So it was an honor to be able to stand with him and honor him today. We are a community that stresses our diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have hired a chief diversity officer. We are the only town in Monroe County to have that position. We have a diversity plan. We're the only town in Monroe County and beyond to have something like that. Part of that is to say to the world, to our neighbors and to ourselves, holidays like Juneteenth are our holidays. They are holidays, in this case, that celebrate the freedom of slaves following the Civil War. But honestly, we all celebrate holidays like these. We should never lose sight of their significance. You're bringing people together, people like Dr. Cooper, but also people like Dr. Frederick Jefferson, a long time Brighton resident, Dr. Arlette Miller, who has spoken so passionately and eloquently at recent events that I've been at, and again through her life. We come together on days like today means that we are truly a community. 1865, it's a holiday that was first celebrated in Galveston. Freed slaves in Galveston in 1866 on June 19th celebrated the first holiday that I believe they then called Freedom Day. Yes, it took until 2021 for Juneteenth to become a federal holiday. Should it have happened sooner? Absolutely, so we got to make up for some lost time. Well, we saw today two great Brighton High School students come and speak, one reading the great words of Maya Angelou and one speaking in her own words. Yes, each generation comes to their history, and it's important they come to it in ways like this. So yes, Juneteenth is something that celebrates an event that maybe some people think, oh, that was over 100 years ago. It is relevant today. It's important that our youth today learn these stories, and better that they participate in events like these. So I'm just so glad that we had them here with us.